start with now certain endocrine glands, and their secretions. To start with pituitary gland, pituitary is also called hypophysis. It lies below the brain. It is attached to hypothalamus by infundibulum or a stalk. This is the hypothalamus. You have infundibulum, and this is the anterior pituitary. So this is hypothalamus. Okay, this is infundibulum. Infundibulum is also called neural stalk. This is posterior lobe, which is called pars nerviosa. Posterior lobe is also called pars nerviosa, and this entire thing is anterior lobe. Anterior lobe is adenohypophysis. Anterior lobe of pituitary. This anterior lobe is again divisible into pars tuberalis, pars distalis, pars intermediate, pars tuberalis, pars distalis, and pars intermedia. All three of them are called adenohypophysis or posterior lobe. Infundibulum and posterior lobe, that is pars nerviosa, are put together called posterior lobe, which is also called neurohypophysis. So posterior lobe is called neurohypophysis, anterior lobe is called adenohypophysis, posterior lobe is divisible into infundibulum and pars nerviosa, anterior lobe is divisible into pars tuberalis, pars distalis, and pars intermedia. Then there are some neurosecretory cells within the hypothalamus. These are all neurosecretory cells. These neurosecretory cells secrete certain releasing hormones and inhibiting hormones. They release them into the anterior and posterior lobe through a tuft of non-myelinated nerve fibers and blood capillaries. Those non-myelinated nerve fibers and blood capillaries which carry secretions from the hypothalamus and pituitary are collectively called hypothalamo-hypophyseal tract. Hypothalamo-hypophyseal tract. Those non-myelinated nerve fibers and the blood capillaries of carotid blood vessel which carry secretions from hypothalamus to the anterior and posterior lobe put together called hypothalamo-hypophyseal tract. So this is the gross structure of the pituitary gland, which is also called hypophysis. Now regarding the origin here now, the anterior lobe is a modified Rathke's pouch. Modified Rathke's pouch. The evagination of the stomodium that gets detached from the stomodium and fuses with infundibulum to form anterior lobe is called Rathke's pouch, named after the scientist. So the anterior lobe is a modified Rathke's pouch, while posterior lobe directly originates from hypothalamus. So on the whole, the entire pituitary is ectodermal in origin. Now the hormones of anterior lobe here now. The first one is growth hormone, which is also called somatotrophic hormone. Growth hormone is also called somatotrophic hormone. It is secreted by anterior lobe of pituitary. Its secretion is triggered by a factor, a growth factor that is released by hypothalamus, which is known as somatocrinin. Somatocrinin. So somatocrinin is secreted by hypothalamus, and this in turn stimulates the anterior lobe of pituitary to secrete anti-lobe of pituitary to secrete growth hormone or somatotrophic hormone here now. And excess secretion of growth hormone is under the control of somatostatin, okay, somatostatin here now, somatostatin that checks excess secretion of growth hormone. Whether somatostatin has negative feedback effect on the secretion of growth hormone, while somatocrinin has positive feedback effect on secretion of growth hormone here now. Now in response to the growth hormone, liver, skeletal muscles, cartilage and bone. In response to this, liver, skeletal muscles, cartilage and bone, all of them secrete insulin-like growth factors. They secrete insulin-like growth factors. These insulin-like growth factors promote metabolism of proteins, and thereby promote growth of the organism. Metabolism of proteins and thereby promote the growth, skeletal growth, growth of connective tissue, growth of cartilage, okay, so on and so forth here. So on the whole, it is responsible for growth of the human being. That's why it is called growth hormone. It brings about growth here now by bringing about metabolism of proteins by under the influence of insulin-like growth factors that are secreted by liver, skeletal muscles, cartilage and bone in response to growth hormone here now. So on the whole, it promotes the growth of the human body here now. Now the excess secretion of growth hormone, hypersecretion of growth hormone in adults, excess secretion of growth hormone in adults, it results in adults, that is before puberty, in adults before adolescence. It results in gigantism. It results in a disorder called gigantism. And in adults now, after puberty, it results in a disorder called acromegaly. That is, at the time of adolescence now, the epiphyseal caps disappear to form epiphyseal lands. The epiphyseal caps are present towards the tips of the bones now. So at the time of adolescence now, they disappear to form epiphyseal lines. Once epiphyseal caps disappear, the bones stop growing here now. So they stop growing and they stop responding to GH. As a result, there is no elongation of the bone lengthwise. However, when there is excess secretion of growth hormone after puberty, instead of growing lengthwise, they grow in width, they grow in thickness here now. That results in irregular growth of the bones. So irregular growth of the bones is a characteristic symptom of acromegaly. Apart from that, acromegaly is characterized by symptoms like prognathism, protrusion of the lower jaw, hirsutism, excessive growth of hair on the body, profuse growth of hair on the body, gynecomastism, development of breast in men, gynecomastism, kyphosis, hunchback. So these are the characteristic symptoms. On the whole, they have gorilla-like appearance, exhibiting these unique symptoms like prognathism, protrusion of the lower jaw, hirsutism, profuse growth of hair on the body, gynecomastism, formation of breast in men here now, and kyphosis, hunchback here now. These are the characteristic symptoms of the person suffering from acromegaly here now. So acromegaly is noticed after puberty and gigantism is noticed before puberty. Both are due to excess secretion of growth hormone, okay, in human being here. The deficiency of growth hormone results in dwarfism, where the children exhibit stunted growth, And dwarfism is of two types. Lorien type of dwarfism, where the people are physically retarded they are mentally healthy. They are physically retarded, that is, they exhibit stunted growth, but however, mentally they are stable, and at the same time they are fertile. Mostly in circus, the people, those you find here, are all Lorien type of people here now. And the second type of dwarfism is called Froelich type. This Froelich type here now, they are not only physically retarded, even mentally retarded and sterile here now. So they exhibit physical and mental deformities. Apart from this, they turn out to be sterile. They turn out to be sterile. Like the dwarfism is of two types, Lorien type and Froelich type. Then another hormone you have TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, secreted by anti-pituitary in response to TSHRF. TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone releasing factor, secreted by the anti-pituitary. Okay. In response to that, the anti-pituitary secretes, this is secreted by hypothalamus. In response to this, anti-pituitary secretes thyroxine stimulating hormone. This thyroxine stimulating hormone stimulates thyroid gland to synthesize thyroxine hormone. Next, we have another hormone here now, ACTH, adenocorticotrophic hormone, secreted by the anti-pituitary in response to CRF of hypothalamus. CRF, corticotrophin releasing factor of hypothalamus. Now, ACTH stimulates adrenal cortex to secrete only glucocorticoids. The secretion of mineralocorticoids is not under the influence of ACTH here now. The next we have another hormone here now, MSH. MSH is melanocyte stimulating hormone, which is also called intermedin in lower animals. It is secreted by pars distalis of anterior pituitary. MSH is functional only in lower vertebrates now, like it imparts dark color to animals. Dark color by facilitating dispersion of pigment granules in chromatophores. Dispersion of pigment granules in chromatophores. Within the chromatophore, when the pigment granules are scattered here now, animal appears dark, and that is brought about by intermedin here now. When all the pigment granules come together, the animal appears pale, and that is influenced by melatonin here now. So this intermedin or MSH is secreted by anterior lobe of pituitary in lower vertebrates and pars distalis in mammals and human beings here now. The next you have FSH, follicle stimulating hormone. This follicle stimulating hormone secretion is under the control of FSHRF of hypothalamus. FSHRF of hypothalamus. This FSH brings about formation of ovarian follicles, primary follicle, secondary follicle, tertiary follicle, and the Graafian follicle. Their formation is triggered by FSH in females here now, and in males it initiates spermatogenesis process. It ensures entire spermatogenesis process in case of males here now. The next you have another hormone called LH. LH is luteinizing hormone. whose secretion is again under the control of LHRF. Now in females, it is known as LH. Now in females, this LH brings about ovulation. Soon after ovulation, it also promotes formation and maintenance of corpus luteum. Formation and retention of corpus luteum. Both FSH and LH, both of them stimulate the ovarian follicles. They stimulate ovarian follicles to secrete estrogen hormone. LH alone stimulates corpus luteum to secrete progesterone. LH alone stimulates corpus luteum to secrete progesterone. The functions of LH. So LH is also called luteinizing hormone. Its secretion is under the control of LHRF here now. Then this luteinizing hormone in females responsible for the formation of ovarian follicles at various stages, and it brings about ovulation. Soon after the formation of a Graafian follicle, it ensures ovulation by rupturing cumulus oophorus part of the Graafian follicle. Then after ovulation, the entire Graafian follicle gets converted into endocrine mass called corpus luteum under the influence of LH. Retention of corpus luteum till the completion of gestation period is also under the control of LH here now. And FSH and LH, both of them stimulate ovarian follicles to secrete estrogen. LH alone stimulates corpus luteum to secrete progesterone. Now ICSH. LH in males is called ICSH hormone, interstitial cell secreting hormone here now. This ICSH stimulates interstitial cells or Leydig cells of testes to synthesize testosterone. The ICSH hormone stimulates interstitial cells or Leydig cells of testes to synthesize testosterone hormone that imparts secondary sexual characters to males. The next you have another hormone here now. Another hormone, that is prolactin. Prolactin is also called luteotrophic hormone. That is LTH, or it is also called mammotrophin. It is responsible for secretion of milk, enlargement of mammary glands, soon after birth, and secretion of milk. It is also responsible for maintenance of corpus luteum, retention of corpus luteum soon after pregnancy, and sustained lactation. Sustained lactation is also accomplished by the prolactin hormone here now. Prolactin is not only functional in human being, even in birds you know, I made a mention already. In birds it brings about secretion of crop milk. Crop milk from the crop here now stimulates a crop of birds to secrete crop milk here now. And lower animals like amphibians and all, it is also responsible for parental care. Now these three hormones you know, FSH, LH and prolactin, they are functional both male and female, hence they are also called gonadotrophins. Since they are functional both the sexes, they are also known as gonadotrophins. The neurohypophysis or the posterior lobe of pituitary doesn't secrete any hormones on its own, but however it acts as a storage depot for secretions of hypothalamus. In hypothalamus, there are certain cells called supraoptic cells. Supraoptic neurosecretory cells present in the hypothalamus. These neurosecretory cells for hypothalamus, that is supraoptic cells, secrete a hormone called ADH, antidiuretic hormone, which is also called vasopressin. Antidiuretic hormone or vasopressin. Now this antidiuretic hormone, it constricts the blood vessels and thereby increases blood pressure, BP. Hence it is also called vasopressin. It stimulates DCT and CD of nephron, stimulates the cells of distal convoluted tubule and collecting duct of nephron, and thereby ensures absorption of water from the outgoing urine. Absorption of water from the outgoing urine. That's why it is called antidiuretic hormone, prevents diuresis. Now, increased blood pressure and decreased blood volume whenever the blood pressure is increased the secretion of ADH decreases. Secretion of ADH decreases because increase in blood pressure is because of increased blood volume. So the secretion of the ADH decreases, so that water is not absorbed. Decreased blood volume. When the blood volume is decreased, the blood flow pressure also falls This will increase the ADH secretion. Okay, when the blood volume is less, ADH level is more. When the blood pressure is high, ADH secretion is less. There are some osmoreceptors in the blood in the body. They always respond to dehydration status in the human body. Whenever the human body is subjected to dehydration, the blood volume is less, osmotic pressure is low, more amount of ADH is secreted by the stimulation of osmoreceptors. Those osmoreceptors in turn send signal to the hypothalamus and thereby they ensure secretion of more amount of ADH. And whenever there is more blood volume, then increased osmotic pressure and increased blood pressure osmotic receptors are inactivated, so that hypothalamus does not secrete much of ADH. Like the blood volume and the blood pressure regulate secretion of ADH in the human body. And secretion of ADH is also influenced by ROS system in the human body. Influenced by ROS system, renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system. So this renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system, they also influence the secretion of ADH. Now deficiency of ADH results in a disorder called diabetes insipidus. When there is deficiency of ADH there will be excess elimination of urine A person who is deprived of ADH secretes not less than 20 to 30 liters of urine per day. And the characteristic symptoms of diabetes insipidus are polyuria, polydipsia, polyphagia, polydipsia, polyphagia and dehydration. Dehydration are the characteristic symptoms of diabetes insipidus that crops up due to deficiency of ADH hormone. There is another type of neurosecretory system in the hypothalamus that you call it paraventricular cells. These paraventricular cells of hypothalamus secrete a hormone called oxytocin, which is also called pitocin or labor hormone or birth hormone. Oxytocin is also called pitocin or labor hormone or birth hormone here now. Now this oxytocin here now, what are the functions? It induces contractions in smooth muscles, induces contractions in smooth muscle fibers of uterus, induces contractions in smooth muscle fibers of uterus at the time of delivery, and thereby ensures easy parturition. That's why it is also called labor hormone or birth hormone. It also induces contractions in the smooth muscles of the body, that blood vessels and all that, you know. It also facilitates ascent of sperms. Facilitates ascent of sperms through genital tract after insemination. By inducing contractions in the genital tract, it enables the sperms to reach fallopian tube by inducing contractions in the genital tract, you know. It also facilitates milk ejection. Facilitates milk ejection, ejection of milk. Formation of milk is due to influence of prolactin, but ejection of milk is due to influence of oxytocin. As the infant starts suckling here now, more and more amount of oxytocin is secreted, and that oxytocin brings about ejection of milk here now.